our next presenter obviously has a very interesting approach as somebody who has marketed in many different ways, but also can give us, I think, the only panelist who was actually at Ground Zero last night. So without further, no?
No, it's all right. I'm ready.
Okay, great, excellent. Come on up. Matis Keshavaras.
Hi, everyone. I'm with the, my name is Matis Keshavaras, and I'm with the Make Agency. And thank you, Chris, for having me, and for Dilly and everyone else for coordinating this great panel. My background, which I think is kind of poignant given the events of the past 24 plus hours, is in 1999 I moved to New York to work for the United Nations. I left my job there after getting offered a job at another PR company, which is something I didn't think I wanted to do. But they hired me to come on board, and soon after I did, 9/11 happened. And no one wanted to touch any of the things that were happening to the Arab American community, and out of a sense of responsibility to my community, and I think a quest for trouble at a 20-something young age, I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll do it. And those accounts started to come my way, and I started to pick up the phone and call people at the Times and say, oh, you know, there's a whole bunch of Muslim men that are getting sent to Guantanamo, and does anybody want to write about it? And you started to feel this backlash and getting called a traitor, and why are you telling me this terrible, you know, news, and why would anybody care about what happens to these men? And that was kind of my first, you know, perspective of, well, I'm here trying to do human rights and social justice kind of PR work, yet the door has been closed to me, being able to communicate even a news, you know, a news item. And so that kind of was my first introduction, and I kind of started pushing a little bit harder, wanting to see where that kind of thread takes you. And my work at the previous firm became really focused on human rights and social justice related issues, but also with a very specific focus on the Middle East and Middle East related type of issues. So I began to represent, working with the Center for Constitutional Rights, the interests of the individuals that were being held at Guantanamo, or people who had been held in detention centers throughout the United States in a post 9/11 climate. And I did that work for almost 8 years until I realized that some of the work that I was doing on the side that was a little bit more fulfilling for me in terms of getting results to a different demographic was the work that I was doing with, for example, the Arab American Comedy Festival, or with Edward Said's play Orientalism, and things that I was doing outside of that traditional call up the New York Times, call up the BBC, and get them to write about these stories, which after a while becomes formulaic, and you're able to do it, and you're able to get those results. And so I thought, well, maybe there's something to it, and I began to explore the possibility of merging the political, which had already become a second nature to me, with the arts, which is where my interests had always lied, and to think, well, here I've spent 7 or 8 years working with this Arab American communities and the Muslim communities, both here and overseas in places like Iran, where I'm from, and in that I've been able to find language that works both sides. You know, that I understand what the concerns are in the East, and I understand obviously very well, having gone to school here and grown up here, what the concerns are here in the West. And so that was what established the Make Agency, which is my company, and our focus is on arts, politics, and culture, and the intersect between those three. That by no means means that we don't touch the politics. We in fact represent some of the most unpopular things that you would want to talk about related to Middle Eastern related issues, but it's because we're able to balance that with art and with culture that we really focus on getting the word out, not only to the Middle Eastern and Arab American Muslim communities, because we're quite good at doing that, and obviously with 8 years experience we have the lists and the relationships to do that, but to really be able to merge that to demographics that wouldn't otherwise want to hear that. So my interest is really in the person sitting in their armchair in Iowa or in Cheyenne, and how they would be exposed to and willing to listen and to hear and to look and think about other ideas, which is what we do. And we do this in a kind of a unique kind of formula that we work on, which we refer to as understand and create and network. And we say that because the understand component is something that we're the best at doing, and that's because we understand the client that we take on. We're a bit picky about who we want to work with because the politics is always an important component for us. So we take on folks that we understand, and because we understand what the issues are and the diversity of those issues and the complexity, we kind of have a leg up on a lot of other companies and others that want to get an idea and kind of understand, well, what can we say and what can we not say, and how does religion play into this, and how does, you know, issues about politics play into this. And because we have that leg up, we are able to communicate with our clients and really build a culture of trust between them. And in that understand phase is really where the strategy comes in. And I think that you would be hard-pressed to find another company that has focused that much on building a strategy and being able to identify how to take an unpopular story or a difficult issue, especially in this time of Islamophobia and Middle East fatigue, frankly, and be able to get results for them. And that's when the create part comes in. And that create part is much more what you expect from a PR firm, and that's to create the kind of media. We've placed hundreds, quite literally, of front page stories, a number of them on papers and places that you would recognize, the New York Times, the BBC, the National in Abu Dhabi, and those places, and organized events and different projects, and sent ourselves overseas to places like Abu Dhabi and Dubai to be able to communicate some of that, what we've learned here, and to be able to bring people to that side of the world as well. And the last step in what we do is networking, and I think that increasingly that's what people are coming to us for, and our interest is in really being able to take our clients, help them understand that strategy, help them kind of build together and empower them to have a kind of a plan, and help them create the media that they need to do that. And we do that using social media, branding, videos, whatever it may be for them, and then ultimately to network them somewhere. So whether they're a small grassroots organization and they want to be at the United Nations, we help network them into those kinds of circles, or whether they have a small book and they're looking for a publisher, or a film and they're looking for an audience, we're able to kind of shepherd that through and offer expertise and strategy throughout. So that's the short of it. And last night, actually, Chris asked me, having been down at the World Trade Center, my friend Kyle, who is here somewhere, and I braved it after being in Harlem at a friend's house for dinner, and so we went down and drove by Times Square and thought, okay, well, let's not get out of the car here. And we finally got to World Trade Center, and we didn't really have a choice. We had to park because there was a lot going on there. And we got out of the car and we went, and this is some of the terrible scenes that a BlackBerry camera can take for you at 2 o'clock in the morning, and just to share with some of you, and some of the uncomfortable feelings that come up being Middle Eastern and Muslim and going down to a place where in the past year or so there's been so much controversy, especially, and seeing these sorts of scenes, which are great. Everybody's happy to have an end to that kind of fear that's been in this culture, but at the same time, there's a lot of other questions and complexities that come up about where we're headed and how we're doing, and the Islamophobia that's been, pretty prevalent in the past 10 plus years. So thank you very much.